This is lucky Wednesday the 13th.
Okay. It's Leonard.
Yes, sir.
This is for me because I can't remember anything.
That's pretty good. I didn't even remember anything to write on.
There you go.
Whenever you're ready, Tom.
Okay. Today is April the 13th, 2011. We're at Steak and Shake on St. Louis and National in Springfield, Missouri, and we're interviewing Gary Leonard. That is GaryLeonard, and he is the owner of the Steak and Shakes here in Springfield, and we will discuss how he ended up with the Steak and Shakes and a little bit about his father. So, Gary, when did your father open this Steak and Shake?
Well, this store opened in May of 1962, and my dad was a corporate man, and he was instrumental in picking out the locations here in Springfield. And Dad went to work for Gus Belt, the founder of Steak and Shake, in 1939, and this was towards the end of the Depression. And Dad opened up the 4th restaurant and managed it for Gus in East Peoria, Illinois. And back then, Gus didn't have any money, so he opened up that store on $300. And he didn't have any money to pay Dad, so he put him on a split. So it was a 60-40 split, Gus-Dad. And Dad worked his way up through the company, and towards the end of his reign there, Dad was making more money than the president of Steak and Shake. This was a really successful store. And so they promoted him out. And the way these stores were built down here was Mrs. Belt, the widow of Gus Belt, he died in '54, had a place, a big place that she had built down in Forsyth. And so she liked to come down here and relax, and then she had a caretaker down there, and she'd bring all the board down and the execs, and they would have meetings down in Forsyth. Well, she needed a reason to come down to this area. So they built the 2 restaurants down here in Springfield. And so they picked what they thought were the 2 best locations in Springfield here, and then the one on South Glenstone. It also opened up in September of '62. And back then, that was on Old Route 66, and that came through Springfield. And then we had the opportunity to come down here and take over the restaurants, or I should say my father did, in 1973. And Dad got that opportunity because the restaurants at the time weren't making any money. And they were kind of far out from everything else that Steak and Shake did. Back then it was a lot further to St. Louis than it was to here. All the 4-lane wasn't in yet then. I-44 hadn't taken over. There were still some stretches of Route 66, as I recall, that were still up and running. And so they were just kind of far flung. So Dad took these restaurants over and made a success out of them, and I just grew up in the restaurants. I've been working in them since I was 14.
This one being the first one, why I remember when it opened, and like you say, this was on 66, and I remember when it opened, it was very busy, and there would be traffic jams out here in front, and the congestion because people coming in and going out and everything, and it was kind of a different time, and the steak burger here was a little different than you found most places. That when at that time probably the biggest competitor you had was Fisher's Highboy, which is up the street. And they had 3 locations here in Springfield, and probably the nearest thing to Steak and Shake was Taylor's Drive-In. They had the way they prepared their hamburger was similar to Steak and Shake.
Very similar.
And so it was a little bit different. And there, at the time, there were a number of just, I'll say, mom and pop hamburger and drive-in places around town, and there was Whataburger and such as that. But eventually, why, I guess McDonald's and such as that took, and Steak and Shake being here too, why it changed the landscape of the, I won't say fast food business, but the drive-in business a little bit.
Definitely. Well, back then, that's what it was. It was individuals, families that started restaurants and built them. And that was kind of the era starting, I would say, back in the mid-'60s when you started to see the proliferation of chains and what they could do by organization and standardization and buying power. So, and then you saw that some of the more family-oriented places or mom and pops started to slip away some.
What changes to this structure would you say have occurred, let's say between 62 and 73 when your dad took over and between 73 and when you took over? Have there been physical changes?
Up to 73, there were no changes. When Dad took over, it was still the original building from 62, and then we expanded the building out. So, let's see, when we did that, we actually had to tent off the line over there with plastic, and then we built, or I should say Dad was doing all this, so I was a kid, built a wooden structure out there, and we served people out the curb window.
Really?
Yeah, I worked in the restaurant during that period. And let me get my bearings on where we...
So you moved that way with the restaurant?
No.
Towards the street, or you moved back
This way.
sideways?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
This way. So, let's see, if you look at the restroom wall, it would be about right here over.
Straight line over?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then if you take and cut that corner off, it would have come into here because this would have been where the cooler was
Okay.
and the freezer was. And then we got a basement down below us, and we had a stairwell that went down underneath, and we moved that outside.
Okay.
So if you look at that stairwell wall outside, that kind of takes it. And then the dining room was much smaller, and then that wait station, which is original, used to be over there by where that pillar is.
And about when did that occur?
That would have been 74.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And then any changes since then?
Oh, we've put a couple new floors in it. Keep replacing the tile. All the equipment back there on the line, with the exception of that one hood, is all the original equipment. The same with the counter and the stools. We got a different seating package because chairs and tables wear out.
Yeah. Right.
The exterior...
Different colors.
Yeah, we had...
Red. When did red come in?
Oh, just a couple years back.
Right,
So
okay.
we had some changes in leadership, and they thought we needed to spice it up with a little more red.
We used to call it steak and shake tile, the black and white.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you went, you go to a restroom or you go to a bathroom or somebody's house in the kitchen. Oh, you got steak and shake tile. It was the black and white
Black and
tile.
white.
Yeah.
The kitchen's pretty much original. The structural tile on the outside, that was all by a company out of Indiana. And I think it was Brazil, Indiana. But anyway, they made a tile, and then it was a structural tile also. So it's got that glaze on the outside of it. Just expensive as heck. And I don't even know if they still make something like that today or not.
Wow. When did you get rid of car hops?
We didn't.
You did?
We still got them.
Really?
Yeah, we run curb service here starting about 10 in the morning, and we'll run it till about 9 in the evening.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's still a
Now, I
part
was
of our
gonna say,
business.
how many of those do? Not all steak and shakes have that.
This is it.
You're the only one.
This is it.
The only one in the state, or the only one in Springfield?
In the system, in Steak and Shake
Really?
system. Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. I didn't know that.
They would like to have seen a drive-through window here, but it just won't fit. So
So you still do curb
we
service?
still do curb service. Yeah.
Wow.
One of the few places that does that. So
Do you know how many restaurants are in the Steak and Shake system?
about 500 altogether. Yes.
I live on Watson Road in St. Louis. And I was telling Tommy earlier, from Lindbergh to Gravois, at one point there were 6. I think there were 6. And I think there's only 2 left. And a couple of them burned down. One's now a Starbucks, and one's just a vacant lot. And then the 2 that are still left have been completely modernized. They're the brand new ones. Do you see modernizing this or trying to hold on to it because it's kind of an icon in this area and It's been around a long time.
Well, Jerry, I'd like to hold on to it. So, corporately, they made a lot of decisions with those old restaurants that they just thought they needed to be changed and updated, and I'm sure they did. And to put something new in, and you don't see many restaurants that are getting close to 50 years old
Right.
that still look very similar to what they were.
Right.
So, if there's a McDonald's that old, it's in a museum.
Right.
And,
Right.
well, like up at Greenwich Village in Detroit. But I'd like to keep hanging on to it, and I kind of consider it like a 57 Chevy. I just want to keep polishing it and taking care of it and taking her out for a spin every day.
Does the Americans with Disability Act, did that affect you at all? Do you have to do anything to upgrade it for
Well,
disabled folks?
we've
Parking,
got-
doors,
yeah.
bathrooms?
We've got a ramp in back, and to allow people to come in, we try and be real aware of that. I've got a sister with a disability, and we've got some tables that'll accommodate wheelchairs.
Good.
And if we see somebody at the door that needs help, we're certainly up there holding the door and trying to for everybody else too.
Right, right. Because I know there were some restaurants that, in where I live, went out of business because of the Americans with Disability Act. I mean, when you had to upgrade anything, you had to upgrade everything. You had, people had bathrooms downstairs. They either put a new bathroom in upstairs, or they had put an elevator in, and some of them just couldn't afford it for their business and wound up just moving or going out of business. So that really didn't affect you that much.
So far, the accommodations we've made have
Good,
seemed to work.
good, good.
And been satisfactory
that's
to
great,
everyone.
great.
So,
And how many Steak and Shakes are in Springfield?
well, there's 5 here in Springfield,
5.
and then I've got 6 total, one up in Lebanon, Missouri.
Oh, okay,
Also.
okay. So the 5 here and the 1 up there.
They've got me. I'm never sure which on any given day.
You own all of them in Springfield.
Yes, sir.
Hey, what are your hours here?
We're open from, here we're open 24 hours a day.
Okay, I was going to ask
Yeah.
because we have some 24-hour Steak and Shakes.
That is-
Is that inside?
No, yes, inside only here.
Okay.
Trying to think, because I've got several. I got mixed hours at some of the
Okay.
restaurants. So.
Because some in St. Louis, there was a very sad incident where a couple of people were
Oh,
killed
I know
over there
that
on
was.
Lindbergh and Mueller. And a lot of the Steak and Shakes now have drive-through
Mm-hmm.
only from midnight or 2 a.m. until the morning. And matter of fact, that particular one did too. It didn't have the place open. So I was wondering for safety or any of those kind of issues. But for you guys, the place is open inside here in the dining room for that whole time.
Yeah, we lock the back door and we have access just through the front door. And really, we haven't had very many problems. So
Good.
Springfield's a
Good.
pretty nice community.
Yeah, good, good.
When they put the ball diamond in, that I noticed when you come by here when the game was either before or after the game, this always seems to be real busy. Seems like you get a lot of customers out of the ballpark over here.
Well, we're nicely positioned, Tommy,
Yeah.
geographically to the ballpark. So a lot of people walk by our front door, and we'll get people wanting to eat on the way to the ballpark, and we'll certainly get people on the way home wanting to eat. And it seems like a few more want to eat after a win. And
Yeah, absolutely, that's right.
and sometimes we get folks. They do fireworks, I believe, on Saturday night. So sometimes you'll get folks, if the weather's a little inclement, they'll sneak over here and watch the fireworks from the windows, and be inside. The ballpark's been a good driver for us. The ballpark's got a nice retro look to it, and I think we fit together very nicely. It's a nice group of folk over there too.
Along the Route 66 line, you get quite a few visitors from groups. I know I've met several
Yeah.
foreign groups here, and it seems like everybody wants to come in and eat at Steak and Shake.
We do. We've had people from the Smithsonian come through on tours. We've had the tours that you've seen come through. We see people come through that rent Harley Davidsons in Chicago and ride to Santa Monica or ride a portion of it. And then we see the reverse that start in California and ride to Chicago the other way. We see people, it seems like a lot of Dutch like to bring their motorcycles over and ride old Route 66, and some Czechoslovakians also, and to do that. And one of the more interesting ones, we had a lady came through, oh gosh, this has probably been about 95, and she was making a Route 66 map for Rand McNally. And she had, and this was not too long after the Berlin Wall had fallen, and she had some East Germans that were doing Route 66. And what first caught my eye out on the lot was they had what are called Trabants. And this is a couple-cylinder, 3-cylinder, 2-stroke motor in these Trabants. And they made them in East Germany. And whatever they made the bodies out of, when you put them in the landfill and they started to decompose, they were toxic. The fumes that they put off. And so anyway, these were very low-powered, very poor mechanical quality. But these guys were driving their Trabants from Chicago to California. And I just thought that was real interesting because these had to be some of the only 2 Trabants that were ever in the United States.
If they needed spare parts, it's going to be in trouble.
The rock group U2, they did a tour not too long after that, and they had these big lights, and the lights were actually Trabants that had big lights mounted inside of them on their tour for their outdoor tour. So those are the only ones I've seen in America.
Have you seen a change in your type of customer, or the clientele from the 60s to now?
Well, yeah, I mean, back when I started working in the 70s, so that's what I can speak
70s,
to
okay.
for. In 73, I started working in this restaurant when I was 14. And so this was the main drag of Springfield for all the car dealerships and a lot of the retail, and the downtown was still operating. So then that all moved out. And so we had some real quiet times down here. And it was still supported during the day. We had a lot of office workers and some government workers from downtown, and that was always a good trade. And it got quiet down here at night. I mean, sometimes you could shoot a cannon up and down St. Louis Street. Well, that through the years has changed. MSU now has grown more towards this. There's been a lot more development downtown, whether you're looking at lofts or retail that's taking place down there, a lot of entertainment that's going on. And then you're starting to see OTC has also come this direction. And so we've really seen a resurgence in this part of town. You've seen some property values start to come back up, and just people want to revitalize and come back to the area. So,
And I've seen more businesses on the main drag than I remember. My daughters went to school down here in the 90s, and we would eat here most of the time. And I was surprised when I heard it was only built in '62. I thought it was an older one. And I noticed that there's some businesses up and down here that were not here, even back in the 90s. So I would think that the clientele might change somewhat, as well as all the tourists that are doing the Route 66 kind of.
it has. I'd say we had more business people back in the 70s, and just because there was more business down here. And I think that has come back. And then we've also got more, from the colleges, say, for example, we might not feed the students during the day, but we'll certainly feed the people that work at the college and the teachers and the professors and that type of thing. And then more so overnight, we get a lot of young people that come in here. So this has a great third shift that takes place, especially when there's events downtown and pub crawls and those types of things. People like to come in and eat afterwards.
That's good. It's good for you.
I've noticed, it seems to me like there's lots of, in the evening you see what I perceive to be as students in here, you know. It's not unusual to see somebody in here eating and have a book or two with them, and they'll be reading and eating, and, you know, so, and there's, when you're in here, generally you'll see a lot of families too.
Sure. Well, it's got a lot of nostalgia too, and so people will think, well, I want to go to the original one, or this is my favorite Steak and Shake. And it's kind of funny as you listen to the restaurants, and I've worked them in all growing up and still do. I'm in them every day. People all have their own favorite Steak and Shake.
That's right.
And as you go from store to store, restaurant to restaurant, and we try to think that we operate them pretty well and pretty much the same, but each store has its own nuances and personality, and everybody likes their own restaurant.
My parents are in their 90s. They both used to go to Steak and Shake, and the one that was then torn down and rebuilt near our house, their opinion was it wasn't modernized enough. It was kind of dirty. Things just need to be upgraded. And so, in one breath, they were upset when it was torn down. But now that it's rebuilt and more modernized for them, they probably go once a week.
Yeah.
And so there was a need, I think, many years ago to take some of those Steak and Shakes and do some house cleaning, if you would, and bring it up to snuff. And what they like is they can get a cup of coffee that's fresh, and they can get a hamburger done their way. The portions aren't huge, and it's very fresh. So those kind of components that made Steak and Shake famous and well worthwhile back in the 30s are still there today. So I think that's a good thing.
That's right.
Well, the main thing is with the hamburger, it's all real meat.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, Tommy, we got to get you to start calling these steak burgers.
Steak burger. Yeah, that's like
There's no ham in a
that's
steak burger.
that's like the cozy dog. When I was
yeah.
up there in
Yes,
Illinois, and I went up there and
Springfield.
And you wanted a corn
Yeah.
dog. Huh?
I told him, I said, I want a corn dog, and he said, we don't sell them. I said, what's them? He says, them's cozy dogs.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So when you were talking about people have their favorite Steak and Shake, so the 5 in Springfield, each one of them basically has their own clientele. There's, they don't mix too much.
Well, they do. I mean, we'll see people that are regulars, and they go from restaurant to restaurant. Maybe they're geographically at a different store during the day when they're at work,
Yeah.
but at night they're in their neighborhood, and they're going to that Steak and Shake.
Menu-wise, what differences have you seen since the 70s?
Gosh.
Breakfast is obviously one, but
Yeah.
you didn't do that before.
It's just gotten huge. And back in the old days, it was basically
Chili burgers. And,
and shakes and
Yeah.
singles and doubles and fries. And we had, not many sides. Cottage cheese, salad, baked beans, and that's about it. Do you remember any others, Mike?
Had chili.
And French fries. Well, sure, the French fries, but we had chili, our spaghetti dishes, chili
Yeah.
mac, chili 3 ways. We had an egg and a ham and egg sandwich and a ham sandwich, and then we had 3 flavors of shakes, and we were pouring Coca-Cola. And
so are some of the changes because of the competition? Because everybody else is starting to do
yeah,
stuff?
I mean, menus have gotten bigger, and people want more variety. And so you give people more variety, but it also introduces complexity, obviously.
Right.
Some of what you get is, say, a family's going out to eat at night, and you want to veto the veto vote, and that's mom. So if mom decides she doesn't want to go somewhere, guess what? The family's not going there. So we want to
If
give.
mom wants a salad instead of a burger, you better have a place that has a salad.
Exactly. You better have something for mom.
Yeah.
And then kids also drive a lot of the decision making.
Well, you made a decision a few years ago that I really like, and that's having a hot dog. Mm-hmm. Because when I bring my grandchildren someplace, I get tired of the fast food places. And so I want to go get a steak burger. And of course, the kid's 2-3 years old and his taste buds for steak burgers aren't there yet. But hot dogs, I think they're born when you come out of the womb wanting a hot dog. Hot dog and ketchup and French fries.
Yeah.
So when you start doing the hot dog, that gave us opportunities to come in with the very young grandchildren who would not have eaten the previous items on the menu. So I found that as to be a real positive. And again, like you said, you're trying to expand your audience and include more folks. Because without the hot dog, we probably would have wound up at one of those other places. And so I think that's a good thing that you're at least looking at how to get the whole family involved.
We want you in.
Yeah.
But and food tastes have grown up. I mean, people know a lot more about food and what they want, and their palates have become so much more sophisticated. So, I mean, think back 30 years ago, there was one kind of mushroom. Today, you can go to the grocery store and buy 30 different kinds of mushrooms, and nobody knew what a sun-dried tomato was. And today, there's all over, or balsamic vinaigrette, or those types of things. So, as a society, we've just grown a lot more sophisticated. And then the boomer generation that I'm part of, too, when you look at some of these flavor profiles and spice and those kind of things, well, what happens is our taste buds aren't as sharp as what they used to be, so we need a little more wham on them to get them to react.
And then there's this thing that people want to try and eat healthy, and that enters into it.
Certainly.
I mean, whether they are or not, they like to think they are.
Well, we've got healthy eating options, and if what you desire is a lower calorie meal and a healthier option, we can certainly accommodate you there. And what often happens in real life, though, is when people go out to eat, is they decide to maybe change their options.
Yeah. Or they read the menu and healthy eating kind of goes out the window for
For some
They'll
folks.
think, well, I'll go back
You
to
can always
that
eat healthy at
tomorrow.
home.
Tomorrow's the day that.
When you look at that, people on average eat about 4 meals out a week. So that's another 17 meals that they're eating somewhere else besides restaurants. But we certainly get a lot of the benefit of people thinking that we're unfairly encouraging unhealthy eating.
What I found, one of the foreign groups came over here. It's been a few years ago.
Hey, Jimmy.
And they, the group of them came in. Well, what it was, a radio station ran a contest, and if you were a winner, they bought, I believe it was 18 Corvettes in this country, and 2 people to the car, and they drove from Chicago to L.A., and they stopped here in Springfield, and they called me when they started, if I'd meet them, and we came to Steak and Shake. And I'm thinking these people was from the Netherlands or someplace, and we come in here, and I couldn't believe they just sat down and they didn't order just one thing, they ordered
Several items.
everything on the menu. And when they got done, I asked the guy that was leading the group, I said, why did they order so much food? And he said, because we're from, you don't do that. We don't have steak burgers or that type of food.
Right.
And he said, they just aren't used to this. And he said, they got to taste a little bit of all of it, you know. And I mean, I couldn't believe the amount of food that they bought.
They
And
eat it
they
all?
didn't eat all of it.
No,
That was
no
were
way they could eat
sampling.
it all.
They
Yeah.
were sampling.
And I was very amazed, you know, that, and he said it's been, and one of the people that bought the Corvettes from sent a mechanic and people to take care of the cars if there was problems, and then they was going to buy the cars back when they got to the West Coast. But anyway, one of the mechanics that was with them, I talked to him, and he said, these people spend money like it's water. He said, I can't believe. And I said, well, what they eat amazed me. And he said, everywhere we go. He said, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
They all
He
would do the
said,
same thing?
they just come in and buy everything on the menu nearly. And then they
pass the
just
place around?
sample it. Yeah.
I think the euro was trading about 35% better than the dollar, so they did have that advantage.
Had a little advantage. But,
We were on sale.
yeah, it's, well, when you talk to these people from overseas, they find it amazing. I guess it's a mandated thing by the government. If you work over there and after you work a very short time, you get a month off every year. I mean, it's mandated. And I know one of these guys, he said, well, when do you get a month off in the United States? And
After
I said,
about
after
50
you've
years?
been there. I said, after you
Retire.
Some places never. And I said, most places you've got to be there at least 25 years to get 5 weeks. And at least 20. And he said, oh my, I said, after, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, you get a month off.
Yeah.
And I said, well, how do they afford it? And I think they even can put money. They'll withhold money from their wages, and then once a year you take this money and go where you want. He said travel in Europe was a big deal, you know. So their way of life's a little different than ours.
There's 500 Steak and Shakes. And what are the general boundaries? They don't go coast to coast.
No.
So you're what? Indiana to
Illinois, Missouri would be the hotbeds of Steak and Shakes, but they're
you have some in Indiana, don't you? Or
oh
not?
yeah, headquarters in Indianapolis
Right, I thought so.
now.
Okay, I thought it was.
They would go all the way to the coast, down into the Savannah, Georgia
Oh, really?
area,
Okay.
and then down into Florida.
But not far west.
And on both sides of the peninsula. Well, they just opened up the furthest west one in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Really?
Not too long ago. And so they made a big jump because before that it had been Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And for many years before they went into Kansas City, we were as far west as they went right here in Springfield.
Okay. So this was at far west.
Uh-huh. We were the western boundary for a period of time.
Wow. Wow.
I'd say up until about 88, 90, 88, yeah, in that era, when they hit KC. You're talking about changes. Back in the old days, we had two sizes of drinks. This was the small size, 12 ounce, and then the shake glass, which was 16 ounce. So on soft drinks, there are only two sizes, no refills. And so that has certainly changed. People are getting bigger portions and drinking more than what they used to. The steak burgers are still the same. French fries are still the same. Chili dishes are still the same also.
What size is steak burger? Pre-cooked, 3 ounce, 4 ounce?
It's about 2.3 ounces.
2.3. About 2.3.
Well, it's what they call 7 to 1. So if you take 7 into 16 ounces, that's what you'd come up
Gotcha.
with.
Now, you used to have a chocolate phosphate, and you don't have that anymore.
No, Dad thought that people would like old-time soda fountains. Dad grew up in a soda fountain. He was born in 15. And so we put in a spritzer in back, and Dad had some pictures taken of sodas and such, thinking we'd get into that business and sell them. But we sold some, but it just never really took off. So
Taste buds had changed by that time.
they had.
Right.
Well, I know we bought them, and then all at once come over here and they said, no, we don't do that anymore.
Well, we just didn't have enough call for them.
Well, it's funny you say that people have their favorite one. I mean, I've eaten all 5 of them in Springfield, but normally if we're out, we either eat here or the one on South Glenstone right there. I don't know why, that just seems to be, you know. And if we go to South Glenstone and they're busy, you know, full, well, we'll come here, or vice versa, you know. Well, we just, you know, but these are generally the two we
Well,
pick
it's a comfort
out.
level that you're just used to them.
People are creatures of habit. They get to know servers, and they get to know managers, and they get that razzmatazz going on, and that's where they want to go.
Is your parking lot the same size it's always been?
Oh, yeah.
Would that be something you'd like to expand if you could?
Well, so far with the amount of seating that we've got in here,
It works out.
we adequately take care of folk. Yeah.
Because I was thinking, you still have curb service, so I thought maybe you would expand. That would expand if you had more slots out there for cars.
We're okay for right now.
You're okay,
So
okay.
When they built these things, they were pretty proficient in how they knew they would work. So basically, they started out with a line, and that was the production line of where we make all the food. And so that was number one, and then they built a restaurant around it.
Okay.
And all the lots were about the same size. They needed 150 by 150
Okay.
square feet. So they could build
And that was
this
pretty
size.
standard then when they were building them.
If they got more, I mean, there's some odd-sized lots, they'd build them on there. You've seen some odd size and different ones, like the Circle Steak in
Right.
St. Louis. And but that's what they needed.
So this one, the one in Glenstone, were built in '62. When were the other ones built?
Oh gosh, we opened up South Campbell in '81, and I ran that day-to-day for about 10 years. And then we opened up East Battlefield in '97. And then I opened up North Glenstone in, what, 03, Mike? 02? 03. Then I opened up Lebanon in 07. So I've just been kind of on a slow growth pattern. So I get a few more dollars, I open up another restaurant.
Now, is there one in Branson?
Yeah, there's 2 down in Branson now, and Charlie Stennett that worked with Dad and went out on his own in '91. And Charlie opened up downtown there, and then he opened up another one out by Celebration City when it was open. Oh gosh, probably 7 years ago now.
So you have there are quite a few Steak and Shakes on the old Route 66.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many used to be on there because there used to be several in St. Louis.
I mean, there's several in St. Louis, and in Springfield. Does Springfield, Illinois have?
I can't remember if one of their stores was on Old Route 66 or not because
it was close.
they've built and rebuilt several times up there, and I've
Right.
known that family forever, ever since I've been a kid. And Dad knew Houseteller. He was the first franchisee back in 1940.
Okay.
There was one on North Lindbergh in Florissant that I always went to.
And Mike might remember which ones were on
exactly,
66
yeah.
since he grew up there.
Yeah,
North Lindbergh,
yeah.
I was just trying to figure out if that was an accident or if that was deliberate because it was the main route.
I think it was deliberate. So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They were looking for traffic, and and byways and those kind of things. So.
Between Lebanon and St. Louis, are there any?
Rolla.
Yeah, Roll's got a store. That's
Rolla's
a
got
newer one. Eureka, Sullivan.
Okay. But those are all relatively new?
Yes, yes. Those have been the last 25 years
Okay.
or so.
And actually, all of those are where, well, the one in Rolla is on 66 on the north side of the interstate, but it's there because of the interstate mainly. But you go by
Right, I
on
know.
66.
Yeah, I visited that one too.
It's
Well, the Drury's on that, and they've got the Drury Lodge there too.
Yeah.
So that worked out well for them there.
now Joplin has.
On kind of range line and John Q. Hammond's, I believe it is, Hammond's Parkway
Well,
down
yeah,
there.
it's on down to towards the south end there in Joplin.
Do you try to do any tie-ins with Route 66 on your advertising or promotions or anything?
Yes, yes.
I'm the advertising manager
I'm helping
for
you,
the
I'm helping
magazine. So I was going to say thank you before you left. So
My pleasure. We're on there. We've got some Route 66 neon up in here. I've got some an ad out at the airport when people disembark to come visit the Classic Steak and Shake on Route 66. We try and push towards different tour groups and that type of thing. We get interest in Route 66, kind of like you folks. And KY3 just came in, and they're doing one on I believe, the 80th anniversary of Route 66. And they're doing a local feature. I think it's going to be an hour show.
Wow.
I can't call the guy's name that works out there at KY3. It's shooting at him.
Tim?
Yeah.
Tim Lonnie?
Yeah. I've talked to him several times, and he's traveling up and down kind of through the state. Well, in fact, he's gone farther west too, and all. But yeah,
Well, you got the Woodruff family, and the 66 started here, and he picked the route through Springfield, and there's still some family left of the Woodruffs.
grandson or great-grandson is John Woodruff.
Yeah, JT, as they call him. And they've still got the Woodruff building downtown.
Yeah.
And I wish Springfield did a little more to recognize Route 66, like what you see especially as you go out west. And it seems like they've got more of an emphasis on Route 66 than what we do. Especially with the influence we had.
Like I've told them, if Tulsa could claim the birthplace, they'd have it on everything that they put out. And Springfield really doesn't care too much. Once in a while you think they've seen the light,
Right.
and then it kind of goes out a little bit.
Do you have a store in Joplin?
I do not.
Do not.
That's a
Or
different.
is there a store in Joplin?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's a different
I was
system
kind of
down
thinking
there.
it has Missouri then covered on 44 from one end to the other.
Yeah, from stem to stern, they're
Yeah,
pretty well
yeah.
covered. Then Tulsa, and then Oak City, and then Las Vegas if you're heading that far.
Now, this is off the beaten track from what we're doing. What does the Las Vegas Steak and Shake look like? Does it look like?
Well, it looks like the newer Steak and Shakes, but it's in the South Point Casino, which is about 7 miles south of what you'd consider the end of the strip by Mandalay Bay. And so it's inside, so it's got kind of a black and white facade awning that comes out that's lit, and the building juts out a little bit from the main building, and it's got glass across the front. Then when you go in, it really looks like one of the newer
any place
Steak and
else?
Shakes.
Okay.
Yeah. And they've got dining room seating and to-go seating. Obviously, you don't have a drive-through window.
And they have slot machines and the.
Well, no, but there's slot machines right before you walk in, and roulette and cards and whatever else you want.
That's funny. It was a visual picture I was trying to get of a Steak and Shake in the middle of Vegas.
I know if you Google that, you can get a picture
Really?
to come up with what that looks like inside
Okay.
the casino.
Okay, that would be fun to look at. It's funny.
Huh.
I've been out to see it.
Yeah, I was going to say you had some pretty good knowledge. It sounded like you were there.
You need to check all these out.
That's right. That's right.
There might be something going on that you need to. But from Oklahoma City, there's not another one then until Las
Nothing
Vegas.
west. My dad, when he ran the East Peoria Steak and Shake, that was a wide open town. And a lot of the mobsters used to come down from Chicago when they needed to cool down or just to get out of Chicago where they could go see shows and stuff. That's where the play in Peoria, because all the vaudeville that used to go east, west, back and forth, Peoria is considered a discerning audience. And Dad had slot machines in that East Peoria Steak and Shake. It was just accepted. There was gaming areas. It wasn't legal, but it was. They just had gaming areas in Peoria, and slot machines were just an accepted part of what was going on.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, overnight, and they cracked down on it, and they just became illegal. And so everybody took them out, and they were burying them in their backyards or whatever they could do just to get rid of those things.
There used to be the courtesy diners in St. Louis used to have, they weren't pinball machines, but they were like pinball machines. The balls would drop in, and if you got a certain combination of scores, they would pay you off.
Paid money.
And so there was actually payoff machines at those, and they had maybe 6 or 7 stools at the counter, no tables, and then they had one of these machines in the corner. And when I was a kid, I went in one of those, I guess it was 13, 14, I thought it was a pinball machine.
Yeah.
So I put a quarter in, and the ball comes out, and it sinks. I'm going, that's it? That was the whole thing? And the guy said, well, you got to put a bunch of quarters in, and then you may get a bunch of quarters out. And I didn't have a bunch of quarters. So.
Yeah, that was the way around.
Yeah.
Gaming
Did you guys ever
was.
have any of those kind of things?
Didn't have those. Just had the slot
You know which one I'm
machines.
talking about,
Yeah,
though.
I do know what you're talking about
And
exactly.
I can't remember what the name of it was, but the balls dropped. I mean, there was no game. You didn't play anything. You just basically shot a steel ball up, and it would hit certain holes, and you had to get a combination of numbers or something. It was like a pachinko kind of thing, a variation of
That
that.
hit kind of the gray area of gaming.
Yeah.
Punch cards?
An almost legitimate
Almost
thing.
legitimate. Almost legitimate.
Yeah, it was almost.
Well,
Do you have Wi-Fi here?
We don't.
And that's a good thing, I think. A lot of businesses are putting that in and having trouble with people who spend hours and buy nothing. They buy one cup of coffee and spend 2-3 hours. And so I kind of wonder, but now you can get computers where you bring your own Wi-Fi in, so.
I vacillate back and forth on that, whether we should have that because so many places do.
But you're not that big.
Yeah, during lunch, I mean, you might say that we're in the real estate business, so we're selling seeds.
That's right. That's right.
And
Well, you
in
want
downtime,
them to eat and make space for somebody else.
in downtimes, nobody cares. So
Right.
I mean, it would be unfair, I would think, to have it and then say turn it off when you're busy. People would be disappointed in that. So far, I just haven't done it.
I don't know if you've ever been to a bread company. I'm sure you have, the St. Louis Bread Company. When you log in to their website, it says, thanks for logging in. We appreciate it. We ask that between the hours of 11:30 and 1:30, you restrict it to needed business if you can, because they want those seats for the lunch crowd to come in. And so they don't kick you off or anything, but they're very politely saying, we'd like these seats for 2 hours. If you want to be here from 9 to 11:30, help yourself, but maybe you can leave and come back.
Give us a little leeway.
That's
there.
Or
right.
eat.
Yeah. So I would imagine that is a challenge to deal with
Sure it is.
with that free stuff where you buy a cup of coffee and take up that space forever for your buck.
No doubt.
Cup of
But-
coffee.
Let's face it, there's still a few of us left in the world that like to go in and eat and just sit down and
Talk.
eat, and you're not inundated by
That's right.
a
All that
bunch of
electronic stuff, yeah.
Yeah, you just visit
That's right.
and do, and you do like it used to be, kind of. Let's say.
I would think if you were open 24 hours and had Wi-Fi, you would have more people, but not necessarily more business.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And it's selling the food is what keeps you in business.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean that's the bottom line of the thing.
Well, we want to take care of the guests and give them what they want. So,
But
all we've got to sell is food and hospitality.
See?
And
Yeah.
And it's a slower pace in here than, quote, fast food restaurants. And I think people want that. I think there's a type of person that wants that. My brother's an electrician, and he works for he works for McDonald's. And he does work for McDonald's. He's being hired by McDonald's. And they're changing all of their playgrounds, getting rid of their playgrounds, and increasing the number of drive-thrus. And I was at one the other day just getting coffee, and on the door it said, help us become the #1 drive-thru in the area. All of they wanted 100 and something cars during a half an hour cycle. And they wanted to get up to that, or 300 cars in an hour. It was some
That's a
huge
lot.
number. And they obviously make far more business, need fewer people cleaning the floors and wiping the tables down, and so that's changing. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, business-wise, it's probably a good thing. But for somebody who wants to come in and spend a little time and feel relaxed, like you're not being pushed, it sort of changes that. And I think your stores are still not pushing anybody, not forcing people.
It's the art of eating and relaxing, and our fast-paced culture doesn't seem like we always get that as much as we should.
And you don't have TVs up on the wall
Right.
and either football, soccer, or whatever it may be going on. I mean, you come in and you can sit and eat and visit. And
Do you have a larger, or not a larger, but do you have a significant older population coming in? People in their
Yes.
60s, 70s?
Yeah, and I would say in Springfield, since we've been here so long, we skew a little bit older than what some of the other restaurants do. And in the 38 years that I've been involved now and working in the restaurants, I'm seeing third generations come in now. So, and we've really created that tradition, and we like to think we do a good job of taking care of the guests here in Springfield. And I'm involved in the community, and Mike is also, and Dad certainly was. And we just know a lot of folk. And we're really a family-oriented type restaurant, and we just know an incredible amount of our guests when they walk through the door and call them by name.
Yeah.
And,
And those older people don't like the noise. I mean, I'm becoming an older person, don't like the noise. And so not having the TVs and having all the stuff.
all the
this
distractions.
This becomes a place that I think an older person would be more interested in because it is quieter. It's easier on their nerves and stuff to come to a place like
there's
that.
enough distraction in life.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Before you go, I do want to point one more thing out. Now, do you see that lady up there holding the balloons
yeah.
in that picture? That's a store opening for a Steak and Shake, and that's my mother.
Really? The balloon lady.
She used to help Dad when they'd go around and
Wow.
open
About
up the
what year is
restaurants.
that picture?
Oh, gosh.
Tommy, you probably could tell based on those cars.
50s.
There's a 53 Pontiac sitting there.
It was in the 50s.
So at
but
least they're only 50.
she used to go around and help Dad open up the restaurants when they'd open up a new one.
That used to be the way they did that. Everybody, when you opened up a new Steak and Shake, everybody came to open up that store.
Okay.
You had everybody's president, the president, Mr. Belt, Mrs. Belt, everybody would come.
And all the other stores in the neighborhood would come by too then?
Then
You'd send help. You'd send your best
You send your best
You're-
help on
you're
opening day, yeah.
You're absolutely very best. That was big.
You
Mama,
got picked for the opening crew. You were the man. I mean, you were the best of the best. And it was an honor to be chosen.
she's also got probably plants in her hand there too. They used to always give out little potted plants.
Plants.
Yeah.
There she's holding, looks like a box or something.
Over the years, as individuals' eating habits and nutrition become a deal, has there ever been a question or a discussion about changing the name? I would hope you would never do that. But Steak and Shake, people are not eating as much meat, they're not drinking as much ice cream and dairy products. So your name says this as opposed to, I don't know what you would ever change it to. Has there ever been a discussion on that?
Not to my knowledge,
Good,
and I hope there never is. That's who we are.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, but like you pointed out, they're steak burgers, and they're not as well. They're made out of better grade meat
We use
than
the whole side of the meat.
Yeah.
And we're lean, and we're not that many calories.
yeah. And you know, you don't have to eat a shake or drink a shake.
know.
Or,
But we hope
know.
you do.
Yeah, but you know, you can come in and you can get a salad to go with your hamburger if you feel like it, you know, and such as that. So you can eat about as healthy as you.
But the history of this
Fruit.
place is what that lady has on the
that?
tray, a burger and a
Oh
shake.
yeah,
That's it.
that's what it.
That's what's made the money.
Perceived
That's
to
what's
be,
grown
yeah.
to 500 restaurants. You get your genuine chili there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Take
Well,
all
the
this-
reason people keep coming back, they go where they feel comfortable.
Right, right. And where the burger they had 20 years ago is going to be very similar to the burger they're going to get.
Well,
70 years ago.
yeah, you're still eating the same food you remember.
Right, right. Your taste buds have that memory, and When you come in, you recreate that memory.
But yeah, and well, you know, doctor can tell you don't eat this and don't eat that, and like I said last night,
water.
mine says drink water, you know, and I mean that's just that's the way it is. So you know
That's who we is.
yeah. And one of these days, they'll come. Well, every month they change what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat and all. That's just
And you guys
whoever
have
paid
adapted.
for the study.
To be able to survive 75 years, you've adapted, and I think that's the key. Is to keep what made you what you are, and then adapt to fit in, so that people don't say, "Well, that's all they are. We'll go somewhere else." And that adaptation's important.
Moderation's the key to anything.
Yeah.
So whether it's eating,
Get a small
drinking,
shake.
life.
Yeah, you know, you can abuse anything.
Too much water, Tommy, and you'll drown.
Yeah, or you'll shrivel up and look like a prune.
That's right. Or spend your life in the bathroom. What other kinds of things, you pointed out the balloons, what other kinds of things would you like for us to know or to have on record about your business here on the old route?
Well, we like to think that we're preserving a piece of history here, and a piece of Route 66 history and a piece of Springfield history, that we've been involved generationally and family with the community here, and feel a strong tug to Springfield and what takes place here, and the memories we've created.
You have kids?
Oh yeah.
Are they involved?
No, well, don't laugh yet.
Okay.
Until you hear the story.
All right.
As I tell people, I came to marriage late in life for the
Okay.
first time, and even later to children. So
Okay.
I've got one daughter. She's 6.5.
Oh,
And
You're forgiven then.
I've got a broom, and she's not very good with it yet.
still in the learning curve.
Yes, she is.
That's great. That's great.
I got to tell you real quick how I started in the restaurant. So I grew up, and anytime I had a day off from school, I'd go with Dad. And we'd travel around to the different steak and shakes. We were living in Peoria, Illinois at the time. So we'd go to Decatur, Bloomington, Pekin, wherever. And that's how I'd spend my day off from school, was with Dad going to these restaurants. And the same on a lot of Saturdays and in the evenings. So Dad took over the restaurants down here in October of '73, and I finished school out in Indianapolis. Didn't move down till the next spring. But I came down to visit Dad. Mom put me on a plane, which was a big deal, and came down for a 4-day weekend. Well, the first day, Dad showed me around town and the restaurants and where he was living, his apartment. And so then the next day, he took me to the Battlefield Mall, and he bought me a short-sleeved white shirt, a black belt, and some black
I
shoes.
can see where this is going.
And I said, "Well, Dad, this is nice, but this really isn't what us kids are wearing today." And so he brought me down to the store here.
Give
and
you a paper hat.
And I went to work. I've been in them ever since.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I've got
Are they involved in the?
no, I've got an older sister, and she lives up in Jacksonville,
Okay.
Illinois, and she's not able to be involved.
Okay.
So, but she's a big Steak and Shake fan.
Good. Good.
Jacksonville, Illinois.
And
Know
they've got a
where
Steak and
that
Shake
is.
there.
And,
Well, that's a great story about your daughter with the broom.
now your father passed away, what, about a year ago?
Well, it's been time slips, Tom. It's been 5 years ago this
5?
January 29th. Yeah.
Gosh, that don't seem like...
Oh, I know. It does.
Time flies, don't it?
It really does. It really does.
No, I didn't.
He was 93,
Dad was just shy of 92.
92.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was...
He was a great man. He was liked by all, great personality, mentored many people. I always tell him that he made people better just by being around them.
That's cool.
Very much missed. He was my best friend, best man at my wedding.
Huh. 5 years. That don't seem possible.
I know, but it is. It is.
Yeah, I remember. Now, who owned these? Who opened these first?
Well, these were corporate Steak and Shakes.
Oh, there
Yeah.
was no.
no other
no
ownership.
ownership.
besides Steak and Shake and Pop.
Okay.
And this is not corporate now. These are yours.
These are franchise stores.
Are you
yes.
allowed to go off the beaten path much? Or
No.
No.
Nope. They
They're yours, but
they do get a lot of guidance.
Okay. So there truly is no individuality. I mean, there isn't. You couldn't.
From a menu standpoint, no.
Okay. What about a decor standpoint? I
I
mean, can you pick which posters you put up? Can you pick what pictures are on the wall?
No, that's pretty well standardized.
Yeah, standard
there,
too.
so.
In fact, the
Menu.
first of these I saw was not here. It was in St. Louis about a,
Right.
what was a year ago last
Yeah.
fall. We
I've
was
seen
up
these before,
there,
yeah.
and I went in one there on Lindbergh, and the walls was red and everything, and I thought, well, when did they do all this? And I came home, and you hadn't done it yet,
Yeah,
I don't
I-
think. And then I was in here, and then while I was talking, I said, oh, good, they left ours original and came back the next time.
It was
It
red.
It was red, wasn't it? Yeah. We keep tweaking them.
We dragged our feet a little bit.
You didn't set the pace then, huh?
We like to be settlers more than pioneers sometimes.
Good line. Good line.
Well, gentlemen, what else you got for me? Or what can I do for you?
Well, nothing.
I appreciate your time. Enjoyed
Yes,
it. It's
been a
fun.
pleasure.
It's been fun. It's been
And-
fun.
Pleasure.
And
Can I buy you lunch today?
I
think
told
I don't know. You gotta talk to these
Dave,
guys.
can I buy lunch?
I'm around. This is Jerry. Oh, it's up
Jerry.
to Tom.
Tommy's got the agenda.
well, we're just
What
gonna
time do we
stop. Well, we gotta after we eat, we gotta go to Bud's, and then we're going 3 or after to the
Okay, what time
guy
are
out.
we meeting Bud?
Just when we get there.
When we get
He'll be sitting there in his chair waiting for us.
Okay.
Bud's son, Rick Perry, is a good friend of mine.
He is.
Yeah,
My
Well,
wa-
really enjoyed it.
I
Thank
did
you.
too. Jerry,
My-
Dave, it's been such a pleasure to make your
I'll have to
acquaintance.
remember this about the balloons and your mom. It was a
we-
great story.
Well, how about it? Can I send somebody over for lunch, Tommy?
Oh, I guess. If
All
these
right.
guys.
Sure.
Hey, before you run off,
Yes,
my
sir.
wife said to tell you that Friday we met a woman, and she is going to help us get the National Register deal through. She says I'll personally see that it gets done.
Okay.
We've been, of course, wife's been out of commission for over a year, so, and we just happened, this gal, we got talking to her at the state park. We was up there for a meeting, and she said, that isn't done. And said, no, and she said, well, in fact, before we got to St. Louis, she called us and said, I've already talked to people in Jeff City, and I'll be there in May to pick up all their paperwork, and we're going to do it.
Okay.
Because we've been quite a while getting this done. They've
Yeah,
had
it's
us
been a
hung
while.
up.
Be sure to tell Glenda we ask about her.
Okay, I
Wish her
will.
our best.
Gary,
Yeah,
I need one more thing. I need
she's
your
sorry
address
she
so we can
couldn't
send you a
come
copy of
this morning.
the interview. We're going to send you a disc.
1550 South Glenstone.
1550
Yes, sir.
And zip.
65804.
65804 South Glenstone. Okay. We will send
There.
you. Jerry will make a copy of the discs and send you a copy.
Dave, such
So
a
you have the
pleasure.
whole interview.
Hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Well, we'll see you.
Thanks for riding herd on all this
you.
crowd.
Thank you.
He is the-
Appreciate it.
Watch out, Tommy.
Whoop,
Here you go.
I can't go very
Were
far.
you an engineer or?
Pardon?
Were you a sound engineer then?
I taught school and I ran audiovisual.
So you got